Assalamu alaikum students, this is our fourth week and lecture 8, and we are discussing today Android layouts where we will discuss what are the user interface. Officially we are discussing these things with the slides, and now we will discuss what is the view. Actually, the view is a basic building block for user interface. It's a view object which is created from the view class and occupies a rectangular area on the screen and is responsible for drawing and event handling. Use the base class for widgets which are used to create interactive user interface components like buttons, text fields, etc. जैसा कि आपको पता है कि जिस तरीके से हम लैब के अंदर प्रैक्टिस करते रहे और जब हम वर्चुअल डिवाइस को ओपन करते हैं एक रेक्टेंगुलर एरिया हमें नज़र आता है, वो हमारा व्यू है. ठीक है जी. Let's move ahead. What is the view group? The view group is a subclass of view and provides invisible container that hold other views or other view groups and define their layout properties. ये एक इनविजिबल मोड में होता है. ठीक है जी. ये हमें नजर नहीं आता, लेकिन ये व्यू ग्रुप जो होता है ये व्यू की भी एक सब क्लास है आपकी. अब एंड्रॉइड लेआउट टाइप्स डिस्कस करते हैं. देयर आर नंबर ऑफ लेआउट्स प्रोवाइडेड बाय एंड्रॉइड टू प्रोवाइड डिफरेंट व्यू लुक एंड फील. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल देयर इज कंस्ट्रेंट लेआउट, दैट इज डिफॉल्ट लेआउट nowadays in Android Studio. The latest version contains that. And then there's a linear layout, relative layout, table layout, absolute layout, frame layout, list view, and the grid view. First of all, we will discuss what is the constraint layout. The constraint layout is a layout on Android that gives you adaptable and flexible ways to create views for your apps. Constraint layout, which is now the default layout in Android Studio, as I already told you about that, gives you many ways to place objects. You can constrain them to their container, to each other, or to guidelines. So let's watch the demonstration of layout on this link. Let me show you that. First of all, how you can position the views relative to one another. You can see that if we place any object or any component on the view, that's rectangular area is a view. We place a button and we are watching its constraints from top to bottom and left to right. So this is the positioning of view. Now let's move ahead. We can adjust the constraints like that, and suppose there are two buttons and we are making constraints, so we can make constraints like that, and that's all on the androidly.net. So I'm referring this to you people for the practice. You can refer this site. So let's move ahead, and now we can align two views by their base length as well as shown below, and you can see that two buttons, how we are handling two buttons. If we want to place them side by side, that is the way. So let's move ahead. The constraint set, horizontal and vertical bias. Now we can see that here is the attribute column and where we can adjust them vertically and horizontally. So let's move ahead and watch the chaining and grouping. So we can place the three components and we can chain them together, and we can adjust their distance vertically easily, and it's an easy way to adjust them. Let's move ahead, and now we can discuss about the barriers. What are the barriers? A barrier is used to create a virtual divider or a guideline and group of views based on the largest view in the group. The virtual divider can be connected with other child views, right? So as you can see, This button is constrained with the other text views, as we have already done this demonstration in the lab. So we can adjust the percentage of the width and the height as well, and then we can do the circular positioning of an object placed, and that's it. Now let's move ahead. So after constraint layout, there is a linear layout. Android linear layout is a view group that aligns all the children in either vertically or horizontally. And there are only two ways that we can adjust them, vertically or horizontally. This is vertical and this is horizontal alignment. So there is a relative layout, then comes Android relative layout, enables you to specify how child views are positioned relative to each other. The position of each view can be specified as relative to sibling elements or relative to the parent. This is a much and most used layout, and I also prefer the relative layout while making mobile applications. So if we move ahead, there is the table layout. Android table layout going to be arranged groups of views into rows and the columns. You will use the table row element to build a row in the table. Each row has 0 or more cells. Each cell can hold one view object only. Right? We will do the practical demonstration on this to get more understanding on this. And then there is the absolute layout. An absolute layout lets you specify exact location by XY coordinates of its children. Absolute layouts are less flexible and harder to maintain than other types of layouts without absolute positioning. This is relatively harder. It's not mandatory that you use this layout. We can choose the layout from which we are much comfortable. Then there's a frame layout. Frame layout is designed to block out an area on the screen to display a single item. Generally, frame layout should be used to hold a single child view because it can be difficult to organize child views in a way that's scalable to different screen sizes without the children overlapping each other. Then there is a list view. Android list view is a view which groups several items and display them in a vertical scrollable list. The list items are automatically inserted to the list using an adapter that pulls content from a source such as an array or database. So that can be used as well. Then there's a grid view. Android grid view shows items in 2 dimensions, scrolling grid rows and columns, and the grid items are not necessarily predetermined, but they automatically inserted to the layout using a list adapter. But all should be placed in a grid view, and grid view contains rows and columns. Definitely, you all know that as in the Bootstrap there is a grid container system, and it is very helpful for the arrangement of components. So let's discuss Android linear layout in detail. So there is an Android gravity. This specifies how an object should position its content on both the X and Y axis. Possible values are top, bottom, left, right, center, center vertical, center horizontal, etc. We can use them in the XML file easily. We can arrange them with the help of coding. And the Android orientation, they specify the direction of arrangement, and you will use horizontal for a row and the vertical for a column. The default is horizontal. And the linear layout attributes are linear layout width. It tells the width of the layout, and there's a height. It tells you the heights of the layout, and there's Android ID that is for the identification, that we can identify that layout with the help of ID. Example of the linear layout, these are the following simple steps to show how to create your Android application using linear layout. First, We go to the main activity.java that by default opens over there, and there's the source file and the source folder. There's a com.example.demos post ever project name, and there's a main activity.java class, and this includes the same code. Following will be the content of RES folder. There is a layout folder, and in the layout folder there is an activity underscore main.xml file. And if we include one more file and would name it the strings, and we can play. So that looks like that. And if we get the output on the emulator window, you can see this on the emulator window, that kind of output over there, right? So let's zoom out again. And the linear layout, we have already discussed this, and this. So output, if change the orientation of layout as Android orientation as horizontal. So previously was the vertical alignment, and that is the horizontal alignment. If you change the orientation, the output will be changed. And we all know that we already demonstrated this thing, that when we do some change, we need to restart our project. And the relative layout, that is the most used layout. There's a gravity, that is the both x and y axis are positioned in which way the possible values